Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the TAC Oceania Online Treasure Cup that happened this past weekend. It was over 300 players, and it's using the unique EB01.5 format. It's the format that we do have OPO6 and EB01 legal, but we also have Sakazuki, Great Eruption, and Rejection banned. So OPO7 is not legal for this event, and it's this kind of weird 2-week format that the English version of the One Piece card game gets exclusively. So a neat little format in between OPO6 and OPO7, and some interesting builds to go with it as well. So a couple of things before we get started. First, I know you guys want the Texas regional deck list for the event that happened at the same time. I will get them as soon as I can. I just don't have them right now, so be on the lookout. And to help you be on the lookout, if you hit that like and subscribe button, not only does it help me, but if you do hit that subscribe, you get notified for future videos, including a potential Texas one that you might be wanting as well. So anyways, I do appreciate all the support. We're making a lot of content for the One Piece card game, and we're already cracking into OPO7 with that being the pre-release this weekend and the full release at the end of the week too. So I do appreciate all the support on the channel too, and let's jump on into this one. So again, we did have over 300 players with 342, 9 rounds of Swiss into this top 16 that we see here today. No top cut for this event. For this event, we did have 6 Trafalgar Laws, 5 Gecko Morias, 2 Monkey.D.Luffys from Star Deck 13, 1 OPO5 Enel, 1 Star Deck 11 Uta, as well as 1 Star Deck 10 Luffy. So nothing too wild, I think, even though this was a pocket format. A lot of people would say that Law and Moria are probably the best, at least the safe picks for this one, because, you know, there's not a lot of testing time for something like this. I would say that the top 5 would be Law, Moria, Luffy, and Uta, the Star Deck 13 one. I had a hard time saying 5th best. I think Enel was probably around there. But I think those 4 are definitely, they're not the best ones, they're definitely the ones that are going to be played the most that you would expect to have a matchup for. And then we also did have the Star Deck 10 Luffy sneak in as well into the top 16. So we are going to go over every individual list. If you guys want to see any of them, they're all on my website, Eggman Events, which is linked in the description. We're also going to go over a couple of unique 7-2s. So these are players that didn't get into the top 16, but they did have a record that would have let them bubble in as well. So a couple of unique leaders did get into that X2 finish, and I did want to go over them as well. So we're going to start off with our first place list, which is Jiawei's version of the Gecko Moria. And again, I think Gecko is the safe pick, or one of the safe picks for this kind of tiny format that we have. The fact that it was doing super well, Trafalgar Law and Sakazuki was usually around 75% of any top cut for any event. So with Sakazuki gone, I think Trafalgar Law and it kind of filled the vacuum a little bit. Though I will say that Great Eruption is quite the hit for this deck. It just kind of means that if you do want to get rid of something that costs like 3 or 4 in the early game, you have to really kind of use it's very costly, right? You can use like a Suru into an Absalom, or even Helmeppo if you're playing a build that runs it, but it's a little bit trickier to get that. It's a little bit more expensive, so I think that's a turning point compared to playing in Sakazuki, where they have just so many ways to get rid of 3 costs, because you can like leader effect and then you use like Houndblaze or something. In this build specifically, I think Moria might have a harder time for that, and so that's kind of a something new for this format that wasn't the case, I think, in the previous format that we had. So other than that, I think some standard cards, some new cards to kind of get in there. We do have 2 copies of the 6-drop Sakazuki, which being able to get rid of a 5 or less by discarding a card is nice. There's also are some times where you want to use this to set up a card into our trash to play with Moria next turn. So for example, if we wanted to play a Kuzan off of our Moria at the at 8 Dawn, for 6 Dawn we can play our Sakazuki, pitch the Kuzan, put it into our trash for free, and then be able to get that. So I think that's nice. You also notice that there's a kind of a shift. There's no event cards in this build. There's no copies of the Rob Lucci 4 cost. We are playing Borsellino. Also 4 copies of brand new. So again, like not super good ways to get rid of like I say like opposing Morias, but I think it's in a good spot. And then lastly, Isho, which I think has been getting a lot better in not only the end of this format, but into OPO7. There's a lot of decks that are just like kind of more control-y, slow-playing decks, so being able to play this and make your opponent discard 2 randomly is very impactful, and you have more time to do so, I think, in the current form against most decks that aren't, I'd say, like Red Purple Law. So it's been good. It's also a Navy card, so brand new, you can search it. The Dawn ×1 underneath it to get everything -3 helps a lot of removal issues that Moria otherwise has. And again, it's an 8-drop 9K, so that's pretty good. And you can even use it for like Black Yellow Luffy, which I think is probably one of this deck's hardest matchups too. So this is the build here, the Yamato from Jiawei. Congratulations for their first place with the Gecko Moria. Next up, we have Zihao with their version of the starter deck Law. Again, I think Law is the winner of the restriction list, and the fact that it was doing pretty good. It lost either not only one of its harder matchups, but also the other matchups lost Great Eruption at times. So the removal potential for against Law is lower than it used to be. And it got a lot of new tools, obviously, in EB01 as well, with the inclusion of like the Bond Clay as well as the Kitten Killer as a fantastic finisher for the deck. So I think you guys probably already know your opinions on Red Purple Law. It's going to be good, organically at least good for the next couple of sets as well. But I think the new ad that I've seen in this build is the Zoro Juro, which is honestly, again, like what I was saying, the 3-cost cards are a little bit trickier to get removed in this current format. So being able to play this on curve and your opponent has to either like spend a lot of resources to get rid of it or they leave it alone, it just means that you get that free ramp, which can be really helpful in a lot of ways, especially since you get it active. If you are on 5 Dawn, you can do some weird things where, you know, you can attack with Zoro Juro, even if you don't put a Dawn underneath it, play out like a Gordon or Raise Max, and then you can play a Captain Kid. So since you went up to 6 Dawn that turn, and then use your Captain Kid effect with the Raise Max, get rid of something, play something, get a Dawn back, and you're kind of off to the races. So I think that's a good ad for this deck. It helps for that early game pressure, and when there's not as much removal, like this 3-cost stays on board a little bit more too. So I don't have much more to say, but congratulations to Zihao for their finish with this one. Next up, we have Star Deck 13 Luffy. So this is Kevin's version of the build. There's not a lot that we can change with this build of the deck. It is kind of cemented on, you know, you have to run a lot of your 2-cost bodies, a lot of your 5-cost bodies, and then you need your like 2K counters and your 1-drops to be able to help you get to 0 life so you can use your leader's effect. So the new kind of ad, the one I haven't seen before is this Ganfall here. Being able to be a blocker, but also on play. If your opponent has 1 or less life cards, KO up to one of your opponent's cards with a cost of 3 or less. So I'm not sure what they were specifically targeting with this one, but it's an interesting ad. It is a blocker as well, which can come up, but just a really interesting one because it's opponent's life 1 or less, not your own life 1 or less. So I don't know why we'd say that. I guess I would probably want to maybe play like I guess it's just a good 3-drop blocker that sometimes gets value, but it's an interesting ad in that one. Other than that, I think this deck, you know, it's pretty understood. We were playing the 200 million volts to help us also get some removal with that one, and it's how it is. So I don't have much more to say. This is the build here, and congratulations to Kevin for their finish on this one. The next up, we have Enel. We do have Jake with their version of the build. I've been playing a lot of OPO7. I think Enel is going to be very good in that format. This one, I still think it does have like a couple of issues of like you need to find your pieces at the right time, and you have to run like a lot of like, if maybe like not even like bricks the right word for it, but cards that have like really specific circumstances. So if you're not in that circumstance, they are bricks in the end. So stuff like Kiko Nojo, which I think a lot of people are running out and not using an OPO7. I think that's still pretty good in this format. We do have like the Charlotte Perospero, and I've noticed this is true in OPO7 as well, where these 6/8 vanillas are honestly just really good bodies. They're kind of difficult for some decks to attack over, get rid of. The fact that you can get some free pressure against something like Eustace Kid, I think is good. I don't think it's necessarily as needed for this format, but again, like against Uta, where they can't really remove this card organically, it gets a lot of value on longevity for this game too. Red Purple Law too, they have to use like double Gordon to get rid of that card as well. So other than that, I think this deck is pretty good. I think Shirahoshi also gets a little bit more value in this meta where like Red Purple Law can still remove it, but like Gecko Moria kind of has to respect that this is a 2-drop blocker that they can't really get rid of, or if they do, you get that extra life back too. So but that's it. Obviously, you're going to make some room for Star Deck or the 10-drop ace when we get to OPO7, but I think Enel's in an okay spot for this one, and congratulations to Jake for their finish with it. Next up, we have Uta. So this is Ben's version of the build, and I think Uta's probably a little bit better than maybe what the showings were for this event. It's definitely pretty linear at what it does, being a deck that just wants to either put a lot of bodies on board, or is like the de facto defender of 8-drop Captain Kid right now. I think this card is going to get a lot better and more obnoxious when we're using it in the Bonnie leader next set, and I'm kind of predicting that Uta is going to drop off because of that most people are going to play Bonnie if all. But again, like this is never the worst deck in the format. It's just being able to it's very linear in its gameplay, but the thing that it does is very good. being able to put some really big bodies on board, and then being able to pressure your opponent with it, as well as having the I'm invincible at the end game to be able to get around like blockers, or be able to get enough pressure to kind of win the game too. So you guys probably have your thoughts about Uta. In general, I don't think it's much of a deck building choice for this one, but this is the build here from Ben, and congratulations for their finish with Uta. And then lastly, in the top 16, we do have the Star Deck 10 Monkey.D.Luffy. This is a pretty unique deck in a lot of ways. The idea that you ramp all the way up to 10 very quickly, just so you can use your effects like your Monkey.D.Luffy to get all the way back down. And I think this is still a good card. There's a lot less interaction with this, with Sakazuki being around. I think Sakazuki could still like get rid of this with like an Ice Age and a couple other removals, but it's a little bit trickier against a lot of other decks. Enel's a bit of a tough matchup for the deck though, since the reset doesn't really like the turn reset means that they get the reset of their leader ability, which is quite tough. But in general, I think this is a good deck in a lot of ways. I do think it like was pretty good against Sakazuki, so losing your best matchup could be tricky. Law, you can have a good matchup, but the issue with that one is that you're only at 3 life. Even though you're 6k, it's not as difficult as it was for Laws to start punching like 6ks at you. And it's just I don't know. I like this deck a lot. It's very unique in a lot of ways, but sometimes it's just a little bit slow, or you don't get the advantage that you want with it, and it's hard to be really consistent with it. But I think that Anthony was able to do a good job with it, and again, like there's not a lot. Like obviously we use Bond Clay, but it's kind of the same deck that we've been seeing since release for this guy. So not much more to say, but big congratulations to Anthony for their finish with this Luffy. And then going into our additional X2s, so these didn't get in the top 16, but again, they did have an X2 record, meaning they could have if their pairings were, or not their pairings, but their tiebreakers were a little bit more in their favor. And we're going to start off with Joshua with their copy of Yamato. And on my tier list, Yamato was just a deck that I wanted to do more testing with, and I honestly didn't. Since 1.5 was such a small format, and I'm moving this month, so I don't have a lot of time. But I do think it has potential for more of like the Wano build, which is what this one is in particular. It's very funny for these Wano builds too, because this was the build that I would say that Yamato was supposed to be, but was not able. Like most people just want more like the hard aggro version of the build, right? Like Kiko Nojo is a really obnoxious card, but when you're a double strike leader that always gets to 3 life on the first hit, it's pretty strong for it. But some more of the Wano cards that we're adding specifically, we do have like the Hitetsu being able to give your leader plus 2k during this turn off the life is pretty nice. We have Hiyori being able to kind of do the same thing. It's a 2k, but it gives your leader plus 1k on play, which is nice. That also kind of works good with your leader effect. Pay this for 2, give something plus 1k, and then you have 2 Dawn to use with your leader, which is nice. And then we also have the new Hiyori as well. So place this in your trash, you get to play a 5 or less Land of Wano card and then draw a card. So even if it's just paying 4 to cycle a card, being able to do that I think is helpful. Gets us closer. We also have like the 5-drop Momo, which is able to be played off the Hiyori, and you're also able to heal potentially. So you could like put your Kiko Nojo back into your life, and then they have to attack into your life. You get to play it for free, which is great. Nekomamushi, kind of the same idea. And then our top end of like Hody Jones as well for our win condition. So I think a deck like this is really neat. I wish I had more time to play in this format, but I think that this could also exist in OP07 since we do get some more Wano support too. So I don't have much more to say. I think this is a cool build, and congratulations to Joshua for their finish there. Next up, we have our Smoker. So this is Efthimios. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but their version of Smoker for this build, for this event. And I know a good amount of people who are like, now that Sakazuki's gone, do we go to Smoker? On the flip side, for being able to get some kind of like another Navy deck, even though like all the Navy cards, they don't care what leader you use, right? You don't need a Navy leader to be able to use their effects, but being a 5-life leader that's black, that's able to get cost reduction is nice. I will say the unfortunate thing about Smoker is that you do have to use a Dawn to be able to use its effect. So unlike Sakazuki or Rob Lucci in OP07, which can just get their -1 on attack attack, being able to have to use this is rough. But the flip side is that if you do get something to 0 cost with this effect, essentially you are able to become a 7k. So it kind of like double dips your Dawn sometimes, which is nice. So this 7k swing is a little bit trickier to get out of, but it does mean like your removal is a little bit impacted from it. So, but I do like the addition of one, not only the 3 cost book, but the 5 or 6 cost one. It just means that you're able to make one of their smoker or their like a Sabo cost 4, which means with your leader effect, which means this Brook gets rid of it, which is really nice. Also can get rid of Rebecca's as well. But the fact that this just puts it into the opponent's trash instead of KOing it helps you, again, gets around the Sabo effect. We also do have stuff like Perona, which if you're playing against something, you can do something where you can play this out. You give something -3 cost, use your leader effect to give it -1, and even if you don't get rid of it this turn, you get a 7k leader attack, which also put a 4/5 on the board, which is nice. So yeah, I think this deck just has a lot of neat things going for it. I haven't tried Smoker out myself, but I don't know, like any deck that can use Gecko Moria is like automatically not the worst deck in the format. So we'll have to see if Smoker is able to continue to get some finishes in this format. And I know a lot of people have been talking about it in OP07 too, so we'll see if that does anything. But this is Efthimios' build, and congratulations for their finish. And then to wrap it up, we do have Rhys with their version of Queen, which is a very interesting leader. It's our first yellow and blue one. We did have the ace one in the new starter deck, but this is a pretty obnoxious leader, and when it's able to go off, we do have like some new cards. For example, we do have the 9 cost Sanji, which I will admit is very cheese for this deck. Being able to, you know, the idea is that for 9 you play this, you hope you have a big card on the top, and if you do, you're able to play it for free, which is really nice. You have a lot of ways to set that up too with Don Quixote do Flamingo, which helps you our X Drake, so that can be helpful. But again, it's a little cheesy. We also are playing like the Yamato, which gets us a heal, our Katakuri, which can get us a heal, our removal, and then we also have the Aramaki. So this, I don't know this for sure, but this is a little one, it has blocker. I don't know, this is my own conjecture for it, but the fact that it has blocker is actually pretty impactful because it's an 8-drop 8k, but it also has this effect of activate main once per turn. You may trash 1 card from your hand and place 1 character at the cost of 2 at the bottom of his owner's deck. This character gets plus 3k power for this turn. So the reason I say that the activate main is good, not only does it, you know, get a plus 3k, but being able to use this effect to get a card out of your hand is actually really helpful. There's some weird times with Queen where with his leader effect you're able to heal like 2 times a turn, but you sometimes have like too many cards in hand to get that extra heal, right? Or there are times like you have just like dead cards in hand. So being able to use this to just get rid of a card, it's also an 8k, it's also a blocker. I can see this being like really good for what the deck wants to do, and gets you that extra heal. Because again, like you have so many cards in your hand that don't have counter that you'd rather discard them so you can get like an additional heal that turn instead. So I think that's something that can be impactful for this guy. I've never seen it played. I have to remember what his name was, but maybe it's a good tech in Queen. It's a good it's a cool little theory craft. I'm happy to see it put to use somewhere as well. But I don't really have much more to say. We do have like a bunch of top end removal of like Red Rock and Raging Tiger, which Gravity Plate, I think, is really good against Red Purple Law as well as Gecko Moria, since they play a bunch of 4-cost bodies. So that helps you, and it gets rid of any protection too. So I don't really have much more from this one. I think this is a cool build for it. I'd have to try it out myself, but Queen's interesting, and I think that like 10-cost Ace is a really good card as well. Obviously, you can't use Queen's effect and play it, the 10-cost Ace in the same turn, but even so, like just a guaranteed heal and then play an attack with a 10k. I think Queen can get some potential in the next set too. So again, I don't really have much more to say, but this is the build here. And congratulations to Rhys for their finish on for this event. But that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We will have some more EB01.5 deck lists in the next couple of days too, so make sure to check that out. And that's going to be it for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all next time.